Recording. Hey, what's up, laser fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, and I am joined by Rose Harding. And today we have a special guest, a return to the podcast, Bruce Poinsett, journalist and podcaster. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Rose. How are y'all doing? I
Oh,
should
hey,
have
Tara.
said both. I just start right off the bat with very poor etiquette of just saying to both of you, and then we're all sitting here on Zoom like, who's gonna go first? Bruce, hello, how are you?
Hey, Tara. Hey, Rose. Thank you again for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's game 82 in about like an hour. And yeah, I'm excited to reflect on the season.
Oh my God, game 82. We're here. It feels like it feels like it's too soon, and also this is the longest season in history.
I went to like early, I forget which game it was, but like when the Magic were in town, like very early in the season. And yeah, that one of the longest quarters that definitely preceded one of the longest seasons I can remember.
Yeah, it felt like there were some real long games this season, but at the same time, I can't believe we're already here. I want more. There's just so much out of this season that I want more of. I feel kind of unsatisfied, although relieved at the same time. So yeah, we're recording this on Sunday afternoon. The Blazers are about to start. So the East Coast games are going on right now. The West Coast games are all going to start in a little while. I kind of love how they do that. Like, I kind of wish they do that more often, where everybody plays at the same time, so nobody can they can avoid trying to do fancy things.
Right. I mean it is sort of nice too for like us to, I don't know, like we don't have like playoff aspirations or anything, so we can just kind of absorb the wash of basketball that's happening today. Um, but like during the season, like the games, it's like some games start at like 4 p.m. our time, and I'm like, what is this madness? And then some teams don't even start like their local time till like 7:30 or 8. What is that? I
Soccer
don't,
starts really late.
yeah, but soccer's, well, yeah, I guess sometimes it does. But it's shorter. If well, it feels shorter. It is shorter because the clock just keeps running. Um, how's everybody feeling? Are we exhausted from this season? Are we energized?
I will just say it's one of those seasons where you're like, which way are we going? Like, obviously, like you said, Blazers don't have playoff aspirations, but also, and I'll get into this a little bit later in the conversation. It's like, so full tank or just kind of like, you know, stick stick foot in the door tank, and that,
Evergreen question, Bruce.
mhm. And that somehow it weirdly is exhausting because it's just like, I mean, maybe you don't want to necessarily do the full Sam Hinkie Sixers thing, but also, yeah, I'll save it. I'll save it.
Yeah, we're our the purpose of what we're going to try to cover today is to reflect on the season, kind of do the some big picture, maybe drill down on a couple of things, but just to kind of wrap it up. And we're the way we're going to do that is that everybody was to think about four different things. One thing to remember, one thing to forget, one thing that exceeded expectations, and then something that fell short. And if you have multiple things and you want to talk about multiple things for anything, that's fine. But that was just sort of how we're like going to frame the discussion about wrapping up the season and just reflecting on what just happened. um, so let's start with remember. Bruce, as a guest, would you like to go first and kick us off? And what's something that you want to remember about the 2023-2024 Trailblazer season?
Yeah, so I feel like I saw this, and I should have looked it up before we, started recording. But I saw some stat that said Jeremy hasn't played like an April game in years, and that feels true. So again, I should have looked this up. But I think my thing to remember is just that this team actually does have veterans because it feels like it's been a couple months. You know, Malcolm is there, Jeremy is there, Rob Williams, you know, get well soon, is there. Like Matisse, the menace, is there. We just like we've been watching. It's been cool to watch, you know, the young guys like not just play, but like really compete these last few months. But it's just like, oh yeah, there's veterans on this team. Like Ant is, you know, he's young, but he's been around for a minute. He's, you know, soon the rest of the league will really see like, oh yeah, it's one of the most explosive scorers, one of the most explosive scoring guards in the league. But yeah, just like there are veterans here. There's guys that have played. You know, Jeremy Grant will be back hopefully for an April run next year. It can happen.
That's
Yeah, that's a
funny.
good point.
Well, I when I was going to the next part would for like I constantly would forget about the vets. Like every time they show Malcolm Brogdon on the screen, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we had Malcolm Brogdon on the team. Oh yeah, Robert Williams is on the team. Yeah, totally. It's something that we have to make a conscious effort almost.
I was realizing that like it feels like Malcolm Brogdon was on the team last year. That's what it like it's been so long since we've seen him. We've just seen like I don't know, like he's just walking in his khakis and sweatshirt every day and like I just sort of forget he's on the team even though he's always there. Like I haven't like I can't even think of the last time we saw him play. Was it before the All-Star break?
I think so.
It's been forever. Like I don't even remember what it was like to have him in the game. And what is his injury? It's like elbow tendonitis. It's like something totally like that sounds benign. But yeah, yeah, I can't think of the last time we saw Malcolm Brogdon play, and I can't think of like the last time we saw like a Jeremy Grant like takeover type of game.
Mhm. Let me ask you all this, because this is something that I asked in the Discord channel this morning on the Trailcasters Discord, because all year there's been a lot of talk about should the veterans play, shouldn't the veterans play? And obviously some veterans have to play because while we do in fact have, I don't know, 5 or 6 rookies on the team, they can't be the only ones to play. So like literally veterans must play. But my question is, because I never really paused to think about this, what do you consider a veteran? Like, what's the definition of an NBA veteran? Anybody have a thought?
Hmm.
That's a good question. I'll tell you what I hadn't formalized this thought, but now that you've asked this question, I can tell you how I generally think about it. Who's on a second contract or greater? That's what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's on a rookie contract, even like a team option, like I still think of you as like a newbie. But that's just me. What do you got, you guys?
I think that's a great point. Like second contract, that's like measurable. I generally think like in my mind, like 4 to 5 years, which is that same that same time period. I don't think it's not the same. I know like rookie contracts, I feel like they used to be longer. Again, could have looked this up beforehand. But yeah, like about that 4 to 5 year second contract mark feels veteran to me.
Yeah, I'm with I think I'm with both y'all. I'm like I think if I had to put a year number, I would say like 3 years probably, because I think that's usually either the first rookie contract, or like if you're a second rounder and you don't get like a full contract, you want to make allowances for them. But it's just funny because all year we just keep like saying veterans, and I had never really stopped to think about like, wait, what do we actually mean by veterans? Because like next year, Shaden's going to be in his 3rd year. Is he still considered not a veteran? There's like, I guess the word that we could be using instead of rookies is just like young players. That's, or like young career players, because WAP is 27 years old, but he's a young career in terms of young NBA career. Anyway, I didn't mean to get us completely derailed on that. I just was wondering what y'all were thoughts on it with since Bruce brought up veterans. Yeah, remember, we have veterans on the team. Love that.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say about guys who are in their second contract, it also means that they've like someone has believed in them enough at the NBA level to pay them again. And like that usually means that you've played enough to really like earn your stripes or whatever. Like I think about how like Shaden hasn't played in forever, really. And I'm like, did Shaden I mean, Shaden got a year of experience, but like not playing. But you know, when he's on a second contract, theoretically, so someone will have seen him play enough to be like, yes, we want to pay you again. It was a good decision to pay you. And I think about that way a little bit about like, remember when we had Zach Collins on this team? Zach Collins was another one of those guys who didn't play a whole lot for like around injury. But when he earned his second contract, even though it wasn't with us, like somebody decided you're worth paying money to, and then he had like a role. You know, you sign him with a role in mind when a guy earns his second contract, usually. So I don't know really how he's working out in San Antonio. I haven't watched them play a whole lot the end of this season, and I know that he's been injured and in and out of the lineup, but you know, theoretically he has a role. And his role is to be the other big guy that's not Wemby.
Is to be sort of the muscle while Wemby still develops that. I feel like we've had a lot of talk this year, and there's going to continue to be a lot of talk next year if you know, Grant and Simons and Brogdon are all on the roster about playing or not playing veterans. And I was just like, I just want to define like what we mean by veterans here. Well, Rose, how about you? What is something that you're going to remember about this season?
Well, I'll just say that this is the lowest hanging fruit of things to remember, but like the Dame return game. And weirdly enough, not because Dame returned, actually, it was just a really amazing game in terms of atmosphere and like the fans being really invested. And it was a close game and we won. And it was like the best, for me, the best win of the year. I mean, I'm biased because I was there in person, and you know, I'm sure that there's other people who saw other wins in person. They're like, that was the best game of the year. But for me, best game of the year. I got to see everybody that I wanted to see there. Everybody was happy and excited. It was a little bit of a nostalgic thing going on, but also like we got to cheer for our team for the end, and I feel like it was like a playoff atmosphere in the middle of the season against a team that we thought we had no hope of beating, and it ended up just feeling like magical. So that's what I want to remember.
I think that's a great one.
Yeah. What about you, Tara?
Well, funny, mine is like actually quite similar to yours. My thing that I will always remember about the season was that first in-season tournament game. Okay, first of all, did anybody even remember that we had an in-season tournament?
Wasn't that last season? I swear it was last season. It feels forever ago.
Uh, oh, I was gonna say there's yeah, I until you brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen. And there were courts that were blinding. That was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason that I am gonna remember it is because for me, a fan of a team that is not a contender, it was a huge success. And one of the things that I really liked and appreciated about the in-season tournament was that the time frame in which it happened was early enough in the seasons where teams are still like trying to figure out who they are and who's going to play. And it's before tanking teams shut everybody down. So it's like anything could happen during this time. And like, you know, they won that first game. It was against the Grizzlies, who, you know, turned out to have their own struggles for the rest of the season. But at that time, nobody knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew if was Portland going to like magically have this year that nobody expected after Damian Lillard left. You know, were the Grizzlies going to like make some progress while they're waiting for Ja to return and then just like, you know, take off from there? And so it was like all the hope in the world. And yes, like remember the controversy about the courts, and everybody had opinions on it. But like, how often is there that much fun talk and dialogue at that time of the year during the NBA season?
That's a good point. I mean, and those felt like playoff games. Like a lot of those in-season tournament games, they felt like playoff games, and a lot of people watched them. And that was like when like Tyrese Halliburton announced himself to like national media, and like everybody was really excited to watch. Like, I mean, I don't know if they were really excited to watch the Lakers exactly, but like you recall, the Lakers barely even got into that tournament to like go to Vegas. And then when they got to Vegas, it was like it was clear that they had like banked a lot of money on LeBron being there because all of the ads featured LeBron. And I was like, "Oh, you needed them to be there because you weren't going to go back and remake these ads." Okay, I got it. But like a lot of people I feel like a lot of people tuned in to those games to watch like the spectacle of it all.
I mean, to the LeBron point, like, yes, but also, you know, the Lakers, again, they could end today at 10th, mind you. But hey, it was Vegas LeBron was fun to watch. Not even as again, I don't have a dog in the race. Blazers are not do not have aspirations except for the lottery. But yeah, it was fun. You had the courts, you had the what's his name from the Sopranos commercials. You know, it was an interesting. It's more so like as far as just like watching a marketing spectacle. Like, yeah, this is. I again the was it Pacers may or may not be in the play in as well after today is over. So as far as the actual legitimacy, well, not legitimacy. I don't want to say that it's legitimate, but in terms of what it means to the actual like contenders, meh. But it was fun. And I just remembered something from just Rose to go back to the Dame return game. As I really had like a kind of like curb your enthusiasm moment in that. Usually, like when I go, because I was also at the game, and for whatever reason, like I was just like not picking up on things. I was like getting food during, the opening thing, like trying to get in there before I want to get in there, just, see Dame introduced. But I just remember coming in on like the anthem, and I'm not a big patriotic person. So but I'm just like walking in with all my stuff, and like everyone's, into the moment, and I'm just like walking through people awkwardly, just going through. It's like, oh, I should just stay up here. But since we're here, I'm just going to keep going through the stands, cutting through everyone as this is going on. Everyone's in the moment. It's just like, I'm that guy right now. But also, we're just going to go through with this. Yeah. So it was memorable for a lot of reasons, as
You
well
just
as the
had to
game.
commit for the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Well, both of these games are like, and I think, Bruce's your thing to remember too about Vetch. It's all like when we're not contenders, it doesn't mean that it's not worth watching. And so when these moments, like the moment of delight that we felt in that first in-season tournament game that we actually won it, the delight of the fans when we actually beat Damien's team, the delight in the fans that we get because, oh, Jeremy actually can go off and go on a heat, on a scoring heater, or Anthony can, like it's not just about championships. And for those who are our teams who are not competing for championships, we have to have something to hang on to, right? And so I guess that makes a good reason why those are things that we're going to remember.
Also, it's like, 'cause I forget if it was that game or any other random game. I had a friend with like tickets for the what's it called? Not like it's the fan something section where it's basically just like a little thing on the side, like it's like a balcony on the side as opposed to like the seats. So it's like my first time kind of like going to that particular like level of the Moda Center. And I just remember walking by, seeing it was like Thursday night football with like it's like the Jets and the Browns. I don't follow the NFL, but I'm pretty sure the Jets and Browns are not super relevant. I could be wrong, but everyone's. I also think about like in the NFL, because to your point about it not being always about championships, like, yes, people talk about rings, but also people get really excited for trash teams all the time. Like, this can happen. I don't know where we got so caught up in like it's rings, 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 or nothing else. But it's like, no, we can watch the sport. Like, how many rings did Barry Sanders win again? Remind me. Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. Sports can
Yeah,
be exciting.
Well,
that's a
yeah,
good point. I think though that like some of the teams that have those followings have like lore behind them. One, any team from like New York or LA or like with like big fan bases, I think can generate a lot of hype even when they're terrible, like the Knicks. Um, but like the Browns have like I think that they've made their name on being a woeful team that people like pay attention to because they're so like they're so pitiful. But it's weird for that to be someone's brand. But yeah, that's I think why people like love them. Or if they're from Cleveland,
yeah.
I guess.
Or if you're CJ.
Right. From Ohio, just Ohio, but not from Bengals country.
Okay, okay, let's move on to what is something that you would like to or will probably forget about this season. Bruce, do you want to kick us off again?
So I would like to. I'm not sure if I'll be able to successfully forget this, but there were two 60-point losses this season. I went to the OKC one, and that, yeah, just feeling your soul leave after like the first quarter is always fun. But and yeah, and then that Miami game also happened. But yeah, I think that that's historic, right? Like, Blazers became the first team to do that, I believe. So again, whether you're going to go full tank or just kind of tank, you know, those felt like moments where it's like, okay, we have decided what this season is, and then other things happened. But yeah, I think we'll go with just two 60-point losses because history.
Yeah, that's I mean, I would like to forget that too. That's a good that's a good thing for us to forget because like in a year where you're not contending for anything, it's a bummer to set a record for something bad. Just in general. Setting bad records is not what you want to do when you're rebuilding.
Yeah, I never want to have to be on my phone Googling what's the biggest loss in NBA history.
No.
Again, I hate doing that, and I had to do that a few times.
Oh yeah, that's let's not Google that from now on, okay? Even if the score looks bad, maybe let's just like take that one out of our Google searches and just let it be. Tara, what do you want to forget?
So I can't decide if I want to forget this or if I want to remember it, because someday the Blazers are going to have awesome success, and it's going to be really important to keep our as fans, keep ourselves in check, remember where we came from. But also it boy did it set the tone for this year, and that was the first play of the season and ball goes up in the air. It goes to Scoot, who immediately passes it out of bounds. Turnover. So, like, on the one hand, it's like, let's not like attach that to him. But on the other hand, like, let's appreciate the how young he was and how far he has come and will continue. I just remember that watching that and just going, oh gosh, what have they done? But then I recovered myself. But yeah, that's so yeah, I can't decide if I want to remember that or forget it.
I feel like that's one something that you might remember if Scoot has a really amazing career and he ends up being really amazing, and then everyone will be like, "Oh, remember that first play of the game though? He was so green, he was so new, he was so excited. Isn't that cute?" But it ended up being really great. So maybe it's worth remembering if that's the context.
I'm here for the narrative of it. So, to have a good comeback story, you got to have something to come back from. Admittedly, Scoot's start to the season is something to come back from. And I feel like he's acquitted himself well, especially in these last couple months. But yes, was that first game? Was that against the Clippers? Or I
I
remember
don't I don't remember who the opening game was against. That could be right. Yeah.
I just remember looking at it and being like, okay, it's Scoot, he gets to play against like Russell Westbrook, who's, good comp as far as like just style of play, and then just also the Clippers. And it's like, well, this is a baptism. Okay. And then that Magic game where it's just like, because it's one thing against like the Clippers, who everyone's kind of like expected, okay, they're going to be in it at some point. And granted, the Magic have actually been solid this year. And I have a friend who's a Magic fan, so it's just we had to like flip sides. Like you're just like, oh yeah, I just make fun of him and all their woes, and it's like your team actually can play this year, and we're we're struggling. But yeah, and I just remember just Jalen Suggs just like terrorizing us in that game. It's
Mhm.
just like it's gonna be long. But again, Scoot's had a redemption, so
Yeah,
there's
and
that.
when I look back, part of the reason like I feel like that's part of Scoot's story is because I think so much of the struggle that we saw at the beginning of the year, what it looked like to me, it was just like the lights were just like too bright. Not like he wasn't destined for that kind of thing, but he was just so nervous that he was doing things like just like, going too fast, moving too fast, throwing things out. And his teammates hadn't played with him long enough, so they had no expectations of like where the ball was coming from or when he was going to do it. So like the two things that I've noticed, which I don't know if they can be measured or not, is that he seems less nervous and less likely to just like, lose it out of bounds because he doesn't have a plan for what he's going to do. And he just like, or his teammates are ready. His teammates are much more ready at the second half of the year. They're like, they've got their hands up because Scoot could give him something any other time. So as they're getting more used to his passing, they're getting ready to receive it. So those are two ways that I've seen him improve a lot, even though he had that 9 turnover game the other night, but he was doing lots of stuff as well. What about you, Rose? Something that you want to forget?
Yeah. So one thing I want to say is I love that you accidentally unironically invoked the Jared Allen meme, which is my favorite, one of my favorites, which is the lights were brighter than expected when he was talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers not doing so hot at the beginning of the playoffs. I think it was last season. Um, but I love that you said that basically. Um, okay, the thing that I want to forget is this. I want to forget, it's not going to happen, but I would like to forget all of the crazy DeAndre Ayton discourse around the ice storm. I really, it like, as much as I get really annoyed at obviously a lot of our local like beat pundits or whatever, regional Blazer beat pundits and what, and like they were so hard on him, and like I think that like he carried narrative with him. It just like really bothered me that they were all jumping on this narrative that they didn't even write for him, that like another team's like sports media started with, and they carried it on for something that like they absolutely had every right to know the context because they all live here. Like the people who are talking about it far away in Connecticut or wherever, I'm like, fine, you don't know what it's like being here right now, though. So, like, I give you a pass because you're completely ignorant. These regional guys know better. And that's like pretty annoying to me that they all knew better. They knew it was really dangerous. They knew that it was like very scary around town, that lots of people had no power, that it was very hard to get places. And they still decided to rag on him and talk about how, oh, what's his commitment to this team? Why couldn't he make it to the Blazer game? Like those
I
guys, they know better.
Who were the regional ones? Because I feel like it was pretty like,
It was like Dwight.
okay, that's right. He was the one who was like, why can't you just get him a snowmobile or whatever?
Yeah, I just yeah,
Yeah,
I just
he
I
should
I
know
can't
better.
the guys who all live here, I'm like, you all know better. You know how dangerous it is. You know people died in this storm. You know that it was horrible. So just cut this man some slack.
Mhm.
Dwight James slandering a Blazer? No.
I know. Shocking, right, Bruce? Shocking.
But you know, it was the easiest, I think. Well, I'll say the easiest, but just the low hanging fruit for especially like I said, like regional people to try and get some just national attention to just jump on the narrative, jump on DeAndre because again, people have been doing that. But yeah, like I said, like people died. It was a historic ice storm. And it's not like they didn't like they did try to get him out of there. They actually, you know, like, well, why don't you do this? Like, I mean, if you look this up, they they did most of also like why do you get him like a snowmobile? Like, let's just think about that for a second. All the insurance, all the potential ways that that could just be like who was it that there was a center years ago like he slipped in the shower and had
Chris
a
Villa.
catastrophic yeah it was like catastrophic injury. No, give DeAndre Ayton a snowmobile. Let's have him work his way out of there. It's for the love of the game for a team that again is headed to the lottery. Why?
Yeah. I just like I understand that everybody lost their minds and nobody understood anything, but I would like to like think that our regional guys would be a little more level-headed about it, and they absolutely were not. Which just like shame on them for like not using their brains and looking around their community and seeing how they like everybody who supports like emergency situations was working their butt off, and no, everyone spending a bunch of resources getting a basketball player to a basketball game is not the most important thing.
For sure.
That's all I'm going to say about it. Let's forget that one.
Okay, so Keith from the Trailcasters, who we need to have come on to talk about this topic in general, is been calling DeAndre Ayton Iceman. And I actually am kind of on board with that because of also DeAndre's significant interest in diamonds and all his gorgeous diamond jewelry. Now, it has been pointed out that there's already an Iceman from the NBA, George Gervin, I think. So, like, where do we stand on this? I mean, I kind of feel like it's hard because I think Iceman is a good nickname for DeAndre Ayton. And but I also like want to respect George Gervin and his accomplishments. I think George Gervin's is Iceman like one word, and maybe we could have a two-word one. I don't know, or should I just like give up on this one?
I'm gonna come out hot on this one. That's a hard veto for me.
Okay.
No, we got it as that's Gervin's.
Okay.
That's the Iceman, the finger roll, the you know iconic poster. It- I like DeAndre, but he can't have that one.
I can live with that. See, that's why I'm asking these questions.
So here's my thing about nicknames that I will say. Nicknames should really suit the player. But I don't think that because the nickname existed for somebody else, that somebody else can't have it. Because quite frankly, that just means that if you came earlier, like the world was your oyster for nicknames. When George Gervin played, there were no nicknames to like honor, and we don't have like a Hall of Fame retirement for nicknames. So I do think that as long as it's like seriously suits the player and no other nickname will suit them, is like it's fine. Now I don't like it when people are like, "Oh, like giving people nicknames because they physically look like somebody else, or like there's like or like they're like related to somebody else, like like with uh Domantas Sabonis, like calling him baby Savas does not hit for me. um but like there's definitely like I think that you have to consider that some nicknames, especially when they're like a little bit generic, like they've constructed in a generic way, they have to be available to somebody else. Now, I will say this, Tara, about Keith's constantly workshopping nicknames because that's his art. I will say it right now, and Keith, I'm very, very sorry because you're probably listening to this right now in your kitchen and you're going to send me a Discord message as soon as you hear this. Penny sucks. Penny is a crappy nickname. Anthony has the same name as another basketball player the same first name as another basketball player. That is not enough to give a guy a nickname. It has to be suited to their game, suited to their aura, suited like there's nothing they share in common other than a first name. So Penny sucks. Get over Penny. Something else. Ant needs a different nickname. It's not Penny. And he can't have Ant anymore because Ant belongs to Ant Edwards. So we got to find him a new name. Maybe we go with what Evan Turner was calling him, which was Amph.
Amph.
Amph. He's like, it's not Ant, it's Amph.
I mean, Ant is just did the Ant again, but it's what we've been working with. But admittedly, that one's tough because it's not just that Anthony Edwards exists. It's that the Blazers have to play them 4 times a year.
And it's just very confusing.
Yes.
It's confusing, and also I don't want that for Anthony of just like, okay, every time the Timberwolves don't need something else, Anthony Edwards doesn't need something else to be like, I'm the real Ant today. Like, you're fine. And yeah, just seeing Towns and Gobert win is it's been a hard pill to swallow this year. It's not what today is about, but as a longtime hater, this has been tough.
Yeah. Yeah, for them to see success with that lineup is rough. I feel bad. I just feel bad for DeAndre because he's like kind of stuck in a bad place with nicknames because he apparently came up with the name Dominatin', which is apparently like the biggest cardinal sin is coming up with your own nickname, even though it's like right there. And if you're like, it's just right there. And if you're the one who first says it, then apparently it's not allowed. And then this other one that we're trying to work on is already taken by somebody else. I just feel bad for DeAndre. I feel like he deserves a nickname.
Did DeAndre Ayton actually come up with it himself or did Devin Booker?
We have not been able to uncover that. The narrative is that he first called himself that.
But I don't remember where I heard it, but when we were like looking at these guys earlier in the season, I swear to God that Devin Booker said it to him first.
It's very confusing because I think he had a line of merch before he was actually called that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's unclear, but in any case, the narrative is out there that he's the one who came up with it, and he's just never gonna. Poor DeAndre can't shake any narrative that has been set about him, just in general.
Why are people so like they love to hate on him? They love to hate on. I don't know what it is about him, but like people love to bag on him in ways that it's like a little weird for like the amount. I mean, I guess he was a first round, a top pick. He was a number one pick. But like
that's why.
But it was years ago. Why do people still love bagging on him? I guess it's the same way people like to bag on Jordan Poole now that he's on like a bad team. It's like Warriors fans trying to like hate themselves into feeling like it was a good move for the Warriors, which it absolutely was not.
So on the Jordan Poole part, guilty. Guilty as charged. I feel like Age is just in a bad. Well, like one, he ended up being basically like the scapegoat in when they didn't beat Milwaukee in the finals, and he did as terms of like highlight plays, they had that Giannis block or whatever on the alley oop, and then having just video of Chris Paul yelling at you will do that, even though also just for like that Suns team, because admittedly I was not a big fan. So the idea of like, did DeAndre come up with a nickname or did Devin Booker? And my first thought was like, I'm not sure which one is worse because I love Devin Booker's game. Don't get me wrong, but not my guy, not my guy. Yeah, and then DeAndre just like he went number 1 in the draft, and it's not been a bad player. It's just it happened to be like, oh yeah, Luca was a few picks later, and then Trae Young was a few picks later. And sure, we could talk about Marvin Bagley because I think that's a more that's more along the lines of, the hate DeAndre Ayton gets. But yeah, it's just yeah, I see what you're saying, Tara, as far as like he just can't catch a break. Like again, I will stand on like it's not that you can't have a nickname that's been had before, but ooh, just like George Gervin is a hard act to follow. I just Ice is so good for him, and just that if I hear Iceman, I think of that poster. I can't. I
I
love you,
just
DeAndre. I just can't.
I had an idea that keeps with the cold theme. How about Mr. Freeze? Is there another Mr. Freeze in NBA lore? We could think about that. Just putting that in there for debate or for, possible later discussion.
I mean, not in Batman lore, in NBA lore
In
specifically.
NBA, right.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
because these are all
No,
like,
I know
or
there's
like,
Mr. Freeze.
I was like, there's definitely like a lot of comic book influence that we're talking about right now. Because Iceman, Mr. Free, like, I don't know. So just for conversation's sake, remember Will Barton? Will Barton named himself the People's Champ, and that is a taken. That one feels taken. And we were still fine with that. Do you remember that? And I'm like, Muhammad Ali is the People's Champ. I don't know, like, so that one is one, feels very taken. And two, he gave it to him himself. But we still, like, nope, I didn't hear nearly the discourse around it as some of these other, like, nickname things.
So this is fair. I will say like maybe some of it is just like the way you carry it, and like the way Will Barton carried that was just I don't know. I remember that. I was like, yeah, people's champ. Even when we trade him to Denver, I was still calling him the people's champ. So touche, touche. But because I'll go back my most again going back to this the hater side of this. I think of Paul George nickname not just nicknaming himself PG-13, but changing his number to 13 so he can nickname himself PG-13. Like that's the thing that happened, and we should never forget that. Never, never.
Can I tell you something though? The thing that I love about him being PG-13 is like it suits him in this way that I don't think he intended, which is that PG-13 movies are those movies that they water down so that kids can watch it, but like should be rated R in a lot of cases. And I'm like, that's exactly how I feel about PG-13. He's a watered down thing of something that could be exceptional, but he's just all right so the kids can watch.
No notes.
Well done. I think one of the things it was about to try to put a bow on this about the people's champ is that Muhammad Ali was a whole different sport. And so like, Will Barton was like the person that everybody was, low key cheering for, or who like represented like just like people in basketball as opposed to being in the same sport. So maybe that's what made it feel a little bit okay. Whereas we've got like DeAndre Ayton is not George Gervin. We know that. And so since you're in the same sport, maybe we try to bump off and come up with something else.
Also, I'll just say this too. A lot of people have tried to claim the People's Champ. The
Mm-hmm.
Rock tried to claim the People's Champ. In Eastbound and Down, that character was nicknamed the People's Champ. Um, there's been a lot of people over the years who want to be calling themselves the People's Champ. I think Manny Pacquiao tried to make it happen for a little while, and he's in the same sport as Muhammad Ali. So like, I don't know, like a lot, it seems like one of those nicknames that like was really special maybe at the time, and also has become like it's like now there's generic knockoff versions at every store that you go to. How everything now, every electronic now has like a version that's preceded with an I, even though like Apple didn't make them. It's like that. There's like a people's champ of like knockoff iPhone stuff.
Well said. Should we move on to our next category? And the next category is something that exceeded expectations. Bruce, you want to kick us off?
Oh yeah, player development. Like, we talked about the young guys earlier. I mean, and I think that's one, like Chauncey's caught a lot of heat his last few years. Is this all is deserved, but I'll give him credit in terms of just like as far as developing players, and we are talking about this before we recorded, like guys like Trendon in years past that have just come up, gotten opportunities, and people have gotten paid. But like this year has been like that, just on steroids. Like just when you think like, oh, it's going to be young guys and it's going to be blowouts every night, but you're seeing, like W.H.A.T just started the league. Or how many guys started on the Rip City remix this year who are playing real minutes and impactful minutes at this point? Not just because of the circumstance, but like, they're playing the Celtics tough through most of four quarters. Like that's something. So you got Duop, you got Tumani, who I remember watching like Bill Simmons' podcast earlier in the year, and he's like, "Yeah, that's your dad's favorite player." Like, yeah, that I feel that now. Seeing Ryan playing again, impactful minutes. I did not expect Rupert to come out with handles. That was not the one I had on my bingo card. And I'm like, okay, Delano Banton balling like like it is it's super encouraging to watch. And when I think about just like the future, I'm just like, okay, like this team, like there's some debt, like they're young, but this could move fast. We look at like teams like what the Thunder, and it's kind of like where we go to as far as like just young teams who are ahead of that.
Well, and seeing where they started and where they finished. So it wasn't so much a like, oh, this player was better than expected. For a lot of these young guys, it was like they started off like Scoot throwing his first pass out of bounds and then ended up in a place where it's like we can reliably count on him, to be a playmaker.
Oh,
Yeah, and he missed part of the season too. Like
right.
he,
Uh, I was sorry. I was just gonna also say like it's not a rookie, but like Jabari, like and I was a fan of Jabari Walker before, but like he on just like a knack for being able to the free throw line, be like a scorer again, where he'd usually be like pigeonholed as like an energy guy, you know, tough rebounder, but like he's making plays out there, and it feels again just like it feels ahead of schedule, but also you love to see it. And son of Samaki Walker, it's not like he doesn't have some of the pedigree as well, but yeah, just we've got a bright future.
My exceeded expectation is kind of related to yours, Bruce. So I'm going to go next if that's okay. And that is the remix actually exceeded my expectations in terms of how valuable the remix has proven to be to this team, but also to our enjoyment as fans, because I was reflecting that last year at this time, they were playing a collection of 10-day guys. It was like just whatever 10-day guys they could find to finish out the season, they were playing on the Blazers. And Rose and I are like trying to catch up with like, okay, who's this guy? We'll do a thing about this guy. And then 10 days later, somebody else is coming in. And it was just like whoever. But during that Boston game, I think it was that Boston game that you were talking about, Sean Hyken tweeted that like the Blazers were playing the starting five of the remix were playing all on against Boston. And for fans, that meant that we actually had some continuity And even if these guys like weren't, they might have been two-way players instead of, full on NBA contracts, we still know them because they've been with the team and we've seen them play on the remix, we've seen them play. And for me, like, I knew it was important and exciting that the Blazers were getting a G League team, but they far exceeded my expectations and how much I was able to actually enjoy the Blazers season.
I love that. And also I agree with you. The like I know that G League teams have been valuable to their like main NBA team for years now, but it was hard to appreciate how much value it would bring also for that like development conditioning pipeline thing that we saw happening this year, where like guys would go work out with the remix, or guys would go get minutes with the remix while they were, instead of like riding the end of the bench. And I don't know, like just seeing that like that pipeline works so well with guys moving back and forth between those two teams. It really like felt like nobody got cold. Like sometimes these guys like come in like they're cold, or they're not like quite ready to contribute if their number is called. And like a lot of these guys that might have otherwise just been sitting at the end of our bench, unless we sent them on assignments to like the Texas Legends for 3 weeks or whatever, and then they come back and sit on our bench again, like it felt more dynamic than that for these guys that don't necessarily expect to see a lot of minutes. Like you saw like Repair was playing with the remix, and then he'd also be on the bench for, the Blazers games, and he got an opportunity to see both and also get to like play minutes. And I don't know, it feels like that the development might be ahead of schedule for that reason. None of these guys got cold. None of these guys we've tried to think about like, oh, what are we going to do with these guys? Are we going to send them somewhere for a few weeks and then bring them back? Oh, we lost Bruce.
Yeah, I think he was freezing for me for a minute, so he may have been getting something like that on his end too.
Yeah, me too. I missed like a whole thing that he said because he froze for me.
We can give it a moment.
Yeah.
Well, because I want to wait till he comes back to finish this thing.
Yeah.
But for what I'm gonna upload to YouTube, I'm not gonna get in here in the middle and chunk out this section. So how can we entertain while we're waiting? Oh, we can talk about the fact that we totally forgot to talk about takes. I was going to start off the program saying, should we do takes? Because after last week, everything fell completely off the rails. As
That's
soon as
right.
we started doing takes, and then we were like, okay, and it's even more awkward for guests. So I don't know what we should do about takes anymore. I feel like I want to maybe just take a week off. What are your
Okay.
thoughts?
Well, we can take a week off and re-strategize for takes next week. But I'll say this, that my husband will be very disappointed if takes go away completely, because his take is that the takes aren't featured enough.
Okay, yes, I'm glad that he's listening and is giving us some good notes.
Oh, he's giving me lots of notes. He has a lot of notes for us. He's like, you need to say something else other than good point. It's like you need to add another like stock phrase in there. I'm like, I can't just like I'm not a podcaster. I'm just a person.
What could you say besides good point?
Um, I don't know. I don't know what else I could say. Listeners, if
Well
you have
said.
I don't like it when people say that though. Here's the thing is I'd actually like dislike well said
Okay.
as a phrase, because sometimes people say it when they agree with you and it's not articulated well, and I feel like it should be saved for things that are articulated particularly well. And I think that also it can be you can use well said for something that is articulated well that you fundamentally disagree with, but that's not how it's used in our society. I'm like, no, I think someone can say something very well that I'm like, absolutely not ever, but I love the way you said that.
Yeah, it's hard to you risk overthinking all of these filler words and phrases, which is why I think people should just forgive people for whatever their filler words and phrases is. But that having been said, one of the filler words or phrases that I don't like is actually, because I always take that the wrong way. I always
Actually.
like when somebody says that's actually a good idea, I'm always like, oh great. So all my other ideas have just been trash for the whole rest of my existence. But that one's actually good. I always take it like that. And I know I shouldn't, but that's always how I take it.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. And it's also become like, I think like the marker word when people try to like describe mansplaining, you know, they're like, actually, like,
There's
I mean, that's not,
actually. Yeah, there's
yeah,
actually.
yeah. So it just like, yeah, actually can go take a hike. I'm with you.
Well, I think that Bruce must be experiencing some internet outage and issues. So we should probably forge ahead and hope that he just sent me an email saying he's having Wi-Fi issues and so he's trying to get back on.
Hmm.
Well, so we've all talked. Oh, have you talked about exceeding expectations?
No, I have
Okay,
not talked about exceeding expectations.
so let's go into that and then hopefully you can join us back and we can talk about things that fell short of expectations.
Okay. So for me, the thing that exceeded expectations, excuse me, um, I I am pleased to see, even though we've only seen a little bit of it, what the Scoot DeAndre Ayton two-man game looks like. And I am very impressed with what it looks like, especially considering that they've both been in and out with injuries, and you know they haven't had as much time to like work on that chemistry together that um they might have expected to have or at the beginning of the season. And I think about how like we got really spoiled that Nurk and Dame had really good chemistry for so long. And I was like, oh, what's it going to be like to build that chemistry again with a new center and a new point guard? And it looks good. I think it looks good. And like it's still a little clunky, and I can still see Scoot figuring out like where DeAndre likes the ball and when he likes the ball, but like they look in sync right now, and I'm very excited for the prospect of what that duo could look like going forward, because I know a lot of people have been thinking like, oh, is DeAndre for now, or is he like a piece to build around? And like I don't know, like if that starts to look really good though, I can see them both being, the guys, like as a part of the core. Um, Bruce, welcome back. I was telling Tara about what exceeded my expectations, which was to me, I am very hopeful to see how good the Scoot DeAndre connection looks, the two-man game looks, even though they've had very limited time together.
For that limited time, I'd just say the highlights have exceeded expectation. I know that oop from the other night, especially, but oh, I think that chemistry is great.
Um, I know I'm out on dunks and especially flashy alley oops with backwards dunks in them. So clearly these guys don't listen to the podcast, but to have seen that, to have a point guard who's regularly throwing lobs, I that so far exceeds my expectation. I mean, really, like I I keep going back and like even though I'm out on dunks officially, I keep going back to track the Blazers how many they're doing. And even though it seems like, oh my God, they're just dunking everything, they're still 28th in the league in made dunks, which doesn't make sense to me, but they're doing them with style. And that style with Scoot and Aiden is lovely. And I would add not just Scoot and Aiden, but Scoot and Aiden and Jabari. I think that Aiden and Jabari are working really well together. Sometimes they go for the same rebound, which is to be expected because we want them to be enthusiastic about going for the same rebound. But in general, I feel like those two are also developing really good chemistry.
Well, there's no Mellow to like scream like F out of here when they're going for the rebound to make it clear this one's mine. But I was gonna say one of the things that I've tuned into for you, Tara. I know you're out on dunks, but these are athletic dunks. And if I had to point out one thing that I had been missing during the Dame era of Blazers basketball, it would be two things. One, he was not really a lob thrower. He could throw them every now and again, but in general, that was not like part of his package. He was not looking for lobs. And two, the floater. So I feel like right now, like the future is bright for those two areas, because one, Ant's got a nice floater. Um, and two, the athletic lobs look very tasty.
Even with the dunks, like, let's see, Shaden's injured. Jeremy is, again, it's April. We don't do that this time of the season. Rob Williams is injured. Like, there, I feel like just a lot of those are on the bench right now. So, and yeah, even to like the lobs point, because I'm trying to think, like, maybe like Nurk before like the major leg injury felt like maybe a little bit more, but yeah, no, that really wasn't a thing back then. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So this moves us on to our last prepared segment, which is things that fell short. And yeah, Bruce, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, we're gonna go back to the tank because and I was considering this for what I wanted to forget, and it's gonna seem counterproductive because you're not supposed to like root for losing. Like it's not good culture, it's not all of that, but there's like a 2-game winning streak towards the end of the season, right after that 60-point Miami loss, where I'm still mad about that. Like, why? What? There's, lottery odds. You're not supposed to play for losing all that, but there's a very legitimate chance to have to get in that bottom three and have, even odds for the first pick in the draft. And you're playing Charlotte, who you are quote unquote competing with for that tank race, and you win. Why? You play against the Wizards, like, don't suit up DeAndre for that game. Don't like, I don't like, once you've lost 2 games by 60 plus points in the season, you have made a choice of what you want to do. You can't just come out and win games. And now today, what was it? Like, if the Spurs who are playing the Pistons, mind you, could move ahead of the Blazers. But that opportunity with the Hornets, it was there. It was why why are you why are you deciding to compete now? It is too late. Um yeah, I have some thoughts and feelings about just the sudden competitiveness. Like, just, and there are ways, like, play through 3 quarters. Play spirited through 3 quarters, and then just I've seen this before. Right? Just put guys, don't try now. Uh yeah. The tank was almost there. It could have been, and it was just like 2 games. Just 2 games, not 10, not not going for like an 8-win season, just 2 games. That's all.
Can I just say, speaking of tank, today the Blazers are sitting DeAndre Ayton, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and Jabari Walker.
They're doing all they can.
They're doing all they can, and I think they're playing the Kings, and the Kings are still I think that the Kings are still not sure where they're going to land seating wise, so they want this win.
Hmm.
So shout out to our friends in Sacramento.
We could have another 60-point
Oh
game.
God.
Okay, I see where you're coming from, Bruce, and like a 2-game winning streak may have jeopardized their chances to have the worst record with the best odds. But how many losses in a row would that have been? And do you really want to put them through that?
I mean, you make, again, it's not good for like morale and chemistry and all the things. But it's like we've gotten to this like I feel like there's a fine, there's distance between losing by 60 and winning. Like you could just lose by 3. Just just it's you just shave just a little bit. Just and again, it's one like the Magic game, at least like that came down to the wire and then things happened. But like you're playing the Wizards. Don't don't bring guys like don't play DeAndre just needs just under the weather that night. Just something. Like, like we can't bring out the vets for these games. Just this is a good it's a good time for some development. Like get it's a good time to boost Jordan Poole's morale. Like be benevolent.
This is why I'm so glad I'm not a decision maker, because the other thing I think about is like for this draft, I don't care because I'm already, and this is what happened to us last episode when Rose and I recorded, is that like this draft, it doesn't matter. It's next draft where it really matters. And I'm trying to just get ready for this happening again next year. So I'll take that 2-game winning streak this year because I know that next season we're going to be in phases where we go so long, where they potentially could go so long without winning because they're going for it. They're really going for it, that I'll take those that accidental winning streak this season because I'm just preparing that next season is going to be more painful. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong.
But you asked what the losing streak would look like if they hadn't won those 2 games. So it would currently be at 17.
Okay.
But the Pistons lost 28 this year. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. So okay, so your falling short was their tanking abilities. Your disappointment in their being able to take it all the way home. I will completely understand. I hear where you're coming from on that one.
There were 2 60-point losses. What are we doing? Why are we trying to pretend like this is legitimate?
Rose, are you still traumatized by last week's discussion to want to weigh in on this?
I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it right now. This is game 82. I'm gonna just live through game 82 and then take the summer to think about where I stand on this issue.
Fair. It's very fair. Okay. For me, the falling short one was really, really hard. And I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way and think I'm being insulting, but I plan my life around my Blazer fandom around having the lowest of expectations. So I had very low expectations for the Blazers this year. I had high hopes, and I will go to my grave saying it's okay to have low expectations and high hopes. And I had the highest of hopes. But so like I had really low expectations for DeAndre Ayton coming in this year. So I would let's see if I can say this in a way that makes sense. My low expectations for DeAndre were not met because he so far exceeded what I thought we were going to get from DeAndre Ayton. So this is my weird way of turning this into a positive, is that I had very low expectations for DeAndre Ayton, and I was prepared to be like, okay, I had high hopes, but it didn't work out. But it worked out, in my opinion. I think finding a new place for him and being able to be kind of like the the older statesman to Scoot's young, still learning the thing. I think that was a really great position to be in. So my disappointment in DeAndre Ayton fell short, if that makes sense. Also, the Bucks and the Suns have not hit the expectations that I thought, and I had higher expectations for them because they're not the teams that I follow. So what's up with the Bucks and the Suns? They got yeah, they got Damian Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic, and I thought that was just going to take them to the moon, and not yet. Things could change.
The Bucks
But
are the bad vibes team. Everything about their vibes are bad. When I look at them, their body language is bad. They're just a bad vibes team that started at the beginning. I swear to God, is there's like a curse on this team after what they did to Terry Stotts, and everything since then has been bad vibes.
Just crossing my fingers. Come on, Dame, Magic, please. But yeah, no, that's yeah, Rose, you're I completely agree. Just bad vibes. And just the way, like, it's kind of like what David Blatt-esque as far as like how Adrian Griffin went out. But for Doc to be hired as a consultant to then take his job is like it's been talked about, but it's still one of the wildest storylines. Especially and Doc's been a part of some interesting coaching transition storylines before. So, and now they're what? They're under 500 under him, aren't they?
I don't
Like,
know. I haven't been following them because they're just pitiful to watch. But one of the things I think about with Doc is how like he has some very questionable things that have happened throughout his career that we look back and we're like, hmm. And when I think about what happened with Adrian Griffin, I think about what happened with uh Blake Griffin, how they like the Clippers upsold Blake on being the greatest Clipper ever, re-signed him, and then traded his butt like 6 months later, as soon as he became trade eligible. Like that level, and wasn't Doc also the GM at that point? He was like the head coach and the GM. So he knew what was going to happen. And the idea that they did that to him and then like sent him to an island in Detroit where he played great basketball, but nobody watched him. But I think about that and I'm like, ooh, this is shady. And what happened where he became a consultant and he came to Adrian Griffin, he's like, I'm here to help. I'm here to help. And then all of a sudden, just kidding, I'm taking your job. Like, also quite shady. Doc is bad vibes.
uh,
Brings it with him.
and the more that happens and all of these things compound, and the sadder Damien looks, the worse I feel for him about how everything played out, and the less likely I feel like he wants to come back. Like he would want, like he's like, you sent me somewhere where it was another first year coach, and then all this other stuff fell apart. I just, anything that might jeopardize a solid relationship between, I mean, I know that the relationship with the front office was already, but like also like with this the fan base and like the capital T Trailblazers, like the team, I worry about that. So I hope that they turn it around so he's not so mad having been sent there, but I might be a little late for that.
I mean, I don't I'll say I think it would be really weird for him to hold that against like what happened after he got there was just the universe coalescing into this thing. It wasn't like something that you could foresee, otherwise he would have probably avoided it. But I think that maybe he underestimated what it meant to go play on somebody else's team and not lead his own, because he really set a lot of culture vibes that like he didn't probably think about as something that he didn't have control over, because he's just always been that guy here. And he goes to somebody else's team where the culture is set by others. I don't want to say he's a guest, but like he went to Giannis's team. He's not like the leader in that sense. And culture is set that he follows rather than he makes the standard for his team. And I don't think he appreciated all of the ways in which he was allowed to do that in Portland. And then he goes to somebody else's team and he's like, oh, if the person who's setting the culture, uh, makes some bad decisions, I'm just along for the ride and I can't change it. Like there's just, I don't know, this like the I can imagine that it feels wild to suddenly realize how much control you've lost because you didn't realize how much you had for the last decade.
So, to be hopeful, I guess, I'll point to the T-Wolves example again, because this time last year, Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson were fighting on the bench, and that looked, and what, they traded all of their future essentially for Gobert. So, these things can turn around. I've seen the examples of bad vibes turned into something positive, something competitive. So that there's that. It's possible. It doesn't look great based on history, based on, as you mentioned, Doc has quite the track record. But also the East is still kind of like yeah, Boston is dominating, but until we like see Boston not do their fourth quarter thing, do we trust it? I don't know. And like people are gonna be like, yeah, they made the finals that one year, but people forget like that was a Jimmy Butler three away from them messing that up. Like so, I don't know. Like things could still break in a weird way where Milwaukee gets out of the East. It's not looking great. The Giannis injury definitely hurts, but who knows?
Yeah,
Thank you for being
that's a good
hopeful
point.
on that one. Because yeah, you're right. It's not over. It's definitely not over. And the reminder about I completely forgot about Gobert and
Slow-mo.
Slow-mo fighting last season. And yeah, I mean, why, it's also could take a couple seasons for them to get that groove. I mean, we're giving our own Blazers, I'm giving them 4 years to, to develop into like full blown contender if it's going to take at least that long.
And Dame, like, it's not like a traditional like situation where he demanded a trade in the last year of his contract. Like he's got several more years to be there for them to like figure out how to make it work and win together. So it's not a lost cause just because the first season there was not what they'd hoped.
There was also, speaking of vibes on that team, like, and maybe it's overstated, but just like some of those clips of like Dame and Brooke Lopez seemingly not meshing on the court, which again stylistically doesn't really make sense, but that just, yeah, just so many bad omens throughout the year with that team. But again, it's one season, and Minnesota could get it together. And my dreams of Kyle Anderson being freed from that situation and didn't happen. So who knows?
It's up to the basketball gods.
Oh, Kyle Anderson. I do like the slow-mo. Okay, well, we better keep moving. So Rose, how about you? What's your something that fell short for you this season?
Um, okay, so okay. This sounds like a weird thing to complain about, exactly, but like this is something I was looking forward to like a lot, and it just didn't happen. And I just wanted to watch Shaden Sharp play more basketball. Like we didn't see Shaden Sharp play hardly any basketball this season. And I'll say like Tara and I have talked at length multiple times about how we're a little concerned that we have a lot of guys that didn't go to college or didn't really play in college. And Shaden Sharp taking a whole year off and losing a whole nother year of development feels really bad to me because he didn't play when he went to Kentucky. He, spent most of this year injured, and I'm like, when do we get to see this apparent basketball prodigy play basketball? Um, so that's what fell short for me. I wanted to watch Shaden Sharp play basketball. I wanted to see what he looked like with Scoot. I wanted to see what he looked like with Aiden. I wanted to see like if he and Ant were going to be complementary, or if like one of them it was clear that one of them was going to have to be moved. Like I wanted to know more about like the Shaden Sharp piece for our team this season, and I just didn't get any of that.
I like that one of the desires there is like, can we get some Scoot and Shaden drama in the media? But I get it though. Yeah, again, dunking is fun. That would be nice to see. Scoring is fun. uh, yeah, no. Hopefully, again, we wish speedy recovery. and a full healthy season next year, because Shaden is just fun to watch. And maybe I think I last time I was on here, I was comparing him to J.R. Smith, so I want to revisit that and be like, even in like, yeah, no shade to J.R. Smith, because J.R. Smith was very impactful player, a champion, and turned himself into like a real solid, like impact defensive player, just like chasing Steph Curry in the finals. So, I hope to see that next year as well. Shaden has that potential as well.
I agree too on the Shaden thing, because we were hoping that this year that we'd get some data about how the two of them work together. And I think a lot of us are holding in our memory the whole Dame and CJ, like, can they play together? Are they are they redundant, or are they complementary? And so like I was excited that this year we would get a peek at that with Scoot and Shaden, and we could start developing a story there. Like, oh, actually they complement each other really well because Scoot throws lobs and Shaden likes to hit them. That would be great. But we saw a little bit of it, just enough to get us really excited, and then nothing. So yeah, it is disappointing that we don't have more like film that they can look at of like what they look like together.
Exactly it. Exactly it. Also, Shaden basketball is fun basketball, even if you're losing.
I know. And he actually, I was developing a nickname for him, Mac and Cheese, because he had one of those in arena things where he had to choose between side dishes, and he was so clearly so excited about mac and cheese and such a big fan of mac and cheese that I was making tweets about mac and cheese, and we're going to call him mac and cheese. And then he went out. And so like we didn't even really get to, and now if I try to like bring up mac and cheese next year, everyone's going to be like, what are you talking about? So another missed opportunity with Shaden.
I didn't realize how deeply invested our fan base is into like workshopping nicknames for players, but like this is clearly like one of our areas of interest.
Well, what else are we going to do?
Yeah, and I speak for a person who's like was upset about winning 2 games. That getting creative about nicknames sounds like it would have been a much more happy place for my mind to go.
Okay, if they ever go on and next year, if things are rolling out in a similar pattern and they go on a winning streak, we'll reach out to you to try to like distract you and be like, "Hey, Bruce, thought up any good nicknames lately?"
Okay, I'm there for it. I'm here for the positivity.
we'll, we'll be here for that. All right. Well, thank you everybody for helping us reflect on some of the things that happened over the years. Over the year, Rose, we had one more activity that we were going to try to do today.
Yes. So one of the things that Tara and I were talking about was like how, we have a lot of, so I'll back this up. Last couple of seasons, by the end of the year, we see a lot of guys playing that maybe won't be Blazers next year. That's just the nature of like the kind of basketball that we're playing right now, where the guys who start the season are not the guys who end the season. And then a lot of guys in the middle get pulled in. And so what I wanted to do was an exercise, which is start, bench, trade. Because we got a lot of guys on this team. I don't think they're all going to be here next year. I love them all like they're my own firstborn child, but I know that realistically that they're not all going to be here next year. So I wanted to take everybody's temperature on what you think the Blazers are going to do with some of these guys next year. I know this is not necessarily your opinion exactly, but like who you expect, what you expect to happen next year, per like what you've seen of the Blazers and their motivations and their like kind of long-term strategy. You guys are game to do this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. So I mostly I grouped people by position. Because when I think about like how to think about these guys, like obviously you need a certain number of guys to play every position. So they're loosely based by position, but also a little bit by like kind of like their hybrid or like functional role. We'll see. So the first three I'm gonna give you: Scoot, Ant, Delano Banton. Tara, I'm gonna start with you. Tara, start, bench, trade.
This one might be the easiest one for me. Start Scoot, bring Delano off the bench, and trade Anthony. And I would just like to say, I feel like Anthony has been so good and so patient with this organization, and I would not be surprised if he was starting to feel like maybe he should have a chance to play for a team that's playing for something sooner rather than later. So I'm not saying the Blazers need to get rid of Anthony Simons. I just think it might be in his best. I feel like he deserves to go play for something if the Blazers are going to keep building. So that's where I am with that. Start Scoot. I think it would be super fun to have a tall point guard come in off the bench. And he seems like he can score too, which I think is an important thing. And then trade Anthony. Not because I don't think he's wonderful. Anyway, that's me.
I get it, Tara. And also that exactly suits the types, like that's what I expected you to do based on the conversations we've had about these guys in recent months. Okay, Bruce, heading to you.
Ooh. So this is tough because I might just might just steal Tara's here because I I want to start Ant. I want to because he's still so young. Like it feels like he's, you know, I mean, yeah, he's younger than Dwap. Like but yeah, no, start Scoot, like let him get free reign, full reign. I I love what I'm seeing from Delano, and he's shown like coming off the bench that he can still be that type of impact player. So keep that. And then yeah, like Ants, especially now that he's on the new contract, like it's gonna be a great value for some team as like he's playing like he should be paid 40 million a year. So I'm just interested as far as like what the Blazers could get back in a trade for a guy that valuable. But also, yeah, just saying trade Ant hurts though. Like it
Yeah.
really, like I Anthony, if you're listening, I say this because I love your game. I love the growth I've seen in these 4 years. Is it is it only been four,
I think it
5?
might be 5.
And like it's still like if you just saw Ant walking down the street, you'd be like, who's this really tall 19-year-old? Like, like it's still there. But yeah, no, Ant, I like Tara's take on it. Ant, you deserve to go somewhere and win. We're gonna couch it like that. So start Scoot, have Delano coming off the bench, trade. I'm shaking as I said, trade Ant.
I'll just say I think you both are right on the money. This is my order too. Start Scoot, bench Delano, trade Ant. And I will do you one better. I know where we should trade Ant to. We have talked about this a lot on this podcast, Tara. Trade him to Orlando, where he is from. He is a Florida boy. And also they are good. And also, like, I would love to see him play next to Paulo Banchero. I'm just gonna put it out there. That would be a fun team, and I would, you know, watch more Magic games if that were what they were putting out there. So we agree. All right. Next 3. Malcolm, Shaden, Ryan. Tara, go.
I think this one's pretty easy for me. Start Shaden, bring Ryan off the bench, and thank you so much for your service, Malcolm Brogdon. Loved having and getting to know who you were, and I think he probably provided a lot of really good, solid veteran, leadership and time for the young guys. So I hope that he has a lot of success on the next team that he gets traded to.
I like that. Bruce, what about you?
Oh yeah, no, same. This is a layup. Start Shaden, have Ryan come off the bench, develop, get more playing time, And Malcolm, again, you deserve to go back to a contending situation. And I'm kind of shocked more teams weren't like really trying to get at Malcolm during the trade deadline. It's like they saw where the Blazers were at. They saw like Malcolm Brogdon won six man of the year like last year. You know, it's not like he's coming off like a down season, but say you deserve to contend somewhere.
Yeah, we agree again. I think that the first two are the easiest ones. We're warming up to some of the harder ones. Start Shaden, Ryan, bring Ryan off the bench and trade Malcolm, who was invaluable this season. I definitely a finalist for most valuable Blazer Terra when awards come around this year. Okay, the next one's harder. Matisse, Tamani, Chris Murray.
Yeah, this is getting harder. And it's harder for me because some of these other ones are like so obvious that it's like basically I feel like we need to have somebody stay on the team who's been around the league for a while. So it's hard for me to want to let go of Matisse at this point. So I'm gonna go say start to money, keep starting to money. Oh, I don't know. Like, I love Chris and I see a lot of potential, but I think I'm gonna keep Matisse. I don't know. I feel like he's got. This is a hard one. Okay, I'm just gonna rip the band out. Start Tamani, bring Matisse off the bench, and then trade Chris, but really reluctantly.
I respect it.
So yeah, no, start Tumani. It's your dad's favorite player. He's got to stay. Um, mm, mm. So with like, because I see the point about yeah, keep some people who've been around for a while, and also just like the way Matisse has thrived in the Blazer system. Like I think there's something to that, and also just it kind of feels like a logjam when it comes to that guy in like that 2-3 spot as far as like Tumani, Chris, Ryan. You know, Shane's a little bit of a different player, but also that then how many young guys do you want competing at that same position? But also like if you're looking to because Matisse has kind of like built up his cachet back up and shown people like everyone knows like he's a perennial all defensive player if he gets the minutes, but he's shown he can be a real legit 3-and-D guy. And I have a hard time seeing teams not looking at that and being like, yeah, like maybe besides Doc Rivers, and we've gone into all of Doc's baggage. Well, not all, but that's a few podcasts probably. But I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna stay with the stay young, and the vets deserve better. So start Tumani. We're gonna have Chris come off the bench, and we're gonna have the young guys fight it out for those minutes, and that'll be healthy, I'm sure. And trade Matisse, someone, maybe the Lakers, but want a player like that. Rose's face on that one.
It was like betrayal and disgust all in one.
That was worth the take.
Well, that was my stink face. Congratulations, Bruce. You win the stink face for today. Um, I like that this one is putting us all on different pages, and I am yet on a different page than both of you. I'm starting Matisse, and I'm bringing Tamani off the bench, and I'm trading Chris. That's what I'm doing because you cannot trade away all of your veteran leadership, and we need a veteran leader on defense. And so as a surprise to me, like I can't believe what fun it is to watch like good defense in Portland. It's been so long since I've seen it. I don't really want to let it go, and I'm not really willing to let any of those guys go who play outstanding defense. And I think Tumani also plays great defense, but Matisse, is a very seasoned defender. Tamani still makes a lot of rookie mistakes, and I think that that's okay for where he is in his career and everything, but I want that veteran leadership on defense. So I'm starting Matisse. I'm bringing Tamani off the bench, and I'm trading Chris. I'm sorry, Chris. Left-handed people forever, but you know what? Like, it's getting hard. Okay. My next group of guys, maybe even harder, and it's weirder. Jeremy Grant, Jabari Walker. And because we don't have another like true power forward that I wanted to put in here, I'm going to just throw this in the mix. The 2024 lottery pick. The top 2024 lottery
Which
pick.
one? Okay. Okay.
The top one.
Ooh, that is hard.
It's hard because one of them is like an undefined thing. It's just a concept and it's nothing until you actually have draft days. So, but a lot of guys trade those, or a lot of teams trade those picks before they actually happen in order to get something else that they want. So, Jeremy, Jabari, 2024 top lottery pick.
Gosh. Bruce, do you want to go first on this one?
I do actually.
Okay,
'cause
go.
I think this was actually kind of easy for me.
Okay.
So you start Jeremy, to the point about the vets, I will go off script for this one and be like, oh, we keep Jeremy. He's, the NBA fashion icon of this moment. So there's also that for just the TV spots and whatnot. But he is a seasoned veteran. He can go off on any given night. Jabari is like a perfect, like, off the bench guy. And especially now with just showing that he can be a scorer and a playmaker. I love it. And we've talked about how this is looking like an underwhelming draft. So no, you trade that pick, especially if there's still a chance it could be in that like top 3, 4, maybe even the first pick. And especially now because you just have like the USA World Game and you're just seeing all these Cooper Flag highlights everywhere. So, if next season happens to go very similar, Jeremy won't be playing in April, so you don't got to worry about that. You don't got to worry about the wins, and you set yourself up for success. And also, with everything we've talked about trading, at least on my end, like this, some nice little packages nice little returns you could get for this. So yeah, start Jeremy, have Jabari come off the bench, and ship that pick.
I really like your take, and I'm tempted to just say yes, endorse that is also my same one, but for the sake of argument, I'm gonna say the Blazers need Jeremy Grant because they need somebody who. So I was going back and forth between whether or not to trade Jeremy or Jabari and keeping that 2024 pick. So I think for the most part, I would go with you, but just for the sake of saying something different, I would say keep Jabari, play the lottery pick off. No, sorry, keep Jeremy because I think they need scoring. And while Jabari has made strides in that, Jeremy's the scorer, and they need somebody who can score. They need somebody who can finish when Scoot gets in the ball, like reliably. So I would say start Jeremy, bring the lottery pick off the bench, and trade Jabari because I think Jabari could be a real like he's honed his skill set to like such a precise, like you need somebody who can come in and get rebounds. Jabari is your guy. And I think that they could maybe get a good return on the investment that they've made in bringing Jabari along and helping him find out what he's really great at. So that would be mine, which would be start Jeremy, bring the lottery pick off the bench and trade Jabari. That having been said, I like Bruce's better.
No, I love that you went with that, Tara, because so I think it's hard to sometimes do these kinds of things, especially when a lottery pick is not a player yet. You don't know what the shape of them could be and how they could fit or whatever. One of the things that I appreciate about that particular take is that we know exactly the type of piece Jabari is and is working toward. And I think that that is a very tradable player on a like a friendly contract. Um, and so for like, there might be a team out there that's like, that's exactly the role that we need filled on a team that's good. Cause like you don't like trade for those guys, like the guys that are going to come off your bench, but be meaningful role players first. You don't build around those guys. But for teams that have figured out what they want, what kind of like style they want to play and who they're building around, he might just be the right player to also have like a good trade value when it comes time to like making a good trade. So I like that, it just in terms of like you taking a risk on the unknown piece. And I know that everybody's talking about a down lottery year, but one of the things I keep saying is sometimes in the down lottery years, it's not because the players are not as good exactly, but it's because there's not a clear cut tier of players coming out that like you see when it's time to draft and draft position. But there are still a lot of really good players, but they're a little more clumped together and they like fit certain roles. So I think like, everybody says that before the draft happens, it's a down year, whatever. But come draft day, there will be players that franchises fell in love with, and they're like, that guy fits our culture, that guy fits the role that we need him for, and they will like, there's nothing else to do on that day besides make moves towards your roster through the draft. There will be teams moving around in that draft to get the guy that they think fits what they want best. So I think there's the potential that we could find a guy in the draft that even though it's not like there's not like a Wembanyama at the top, like there are still really good players that fit the like vision that you have for your team and on the timeline for your team that like are going to be great. So that said, for me, it is keep Jeremy, start him. It's actually keep the pick and trade Jabari for that
We
reason.
all are keeping Jeremy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, I'll say it's just too hard to let like we all said that we would trade Anthony Simons. It's just too hard to say that you would also trade Jeremy because like you need top tier veterans on your team for the rest of your team to like figure out what they're playing toward. I mean, sure you could just put a bunch of youth out there, but like I don't know if that's a good idea. You just put youth out there with no one to show them the ropes on like some of the styles that they might try on for themselves. And also Jeremy's just, can I just say as a fan, like Jeremy's really nice to look at. He's really good at basketball. He's chill. Like, I don't know. I'm down with keeping Jeremy just for like, my like
For the
motivation to
vibes.
watch the Blazers next year. Okay, this is the last one. Last one, guys. We're going to center. Rob, WAP, DeAndre Ayton. Keep, bench, trade. This is tough because also, like that lottery pick, we haven't really seen Rob Williams play.
Okay, I'll go for it. So yeah, start DeAndre. Yeah, WAP's coming off the bench, and Rob Williams. You know, oh, so intriguing, and you've seen what impact he can have in some of those deep Celtics playoff runs, but also, it's just can't control, but it's just has had a hard time staying healthy. And it's like again, there's a number of teams out there like, like if the Grizzlies hadn't just, also had serious injury stuff this year, it's one of those teams where I'm like, that seems like a team that they have picks and they would make an offer to have a guy like that, you know, to go for the stink face again. The Lakers could have been a team who have been like, they could use a guy like that. It's so worth
Why
it
do you
every
keep
time.
saying that word? Stop saying that word, Bruce. I thought we were friends here.
I'll just say Robert Williams, like, because
The
there's
Lake
also
the Lakers want a lot of things, but they don't really have the payroll to get any of them, do they? Or they would already have them.
no. Look, GM LeBron he makes things happen. It doesn't seem like it can happen, but it happens. All I'm saying is Rob Williams, like, very valuable player. It'd be very intriguing. Like, there's a version of the Blazers where everyone is healthy and like you have Matisse and Rob Williams just terrorizing people. But I'm not sure, especially on like the timeline we're talking about, that that's really what they're going for. So yeah, get picks, get assets, because he is a valuable, like, a valuable big man, either presence for a team that could win. So yeah, start DeAndre, bring Dwop off the bench, and yeah, Rob, thank you for your service.
Okay, I will also start DeAndre. I am gonna bring Rob off the bench and trade him at the deadline. And at the beginning of the season, I'm going to trade W.A.T. I really love WAP. I think he's awesome, and I think he's an awesome story. And I think he has reached his, like, we know exactly what he is. And I think where the Blazers are now, they're more likely to want to gamble on somebody with a higher ceiling than WAP has. And I'm super excited that he did everything that he did this year. And I think he's another one who would be like, oh, we need a center who can shoot threes for limited minutes. That's exactly what we need. So I would, like I said, I would start DeAndre. I would bring Rob off the bench because I want to see what he does. It's just too tantalizing. I want to see what he does, but then most likely trade him at the deadline and then again trade WAP at the beginning.
That's so interesting, Tara. I didn't think you would go there. But that's mine.
That's yours?
Start DeAndre,
That's
trade
not
WAP.
what I thought you were going to say at all.
I know. And because here's the thing. I don't think that WAP and DeAndre can play together. I do think that Rob might be able to play with DeAndre. And that is very attractive to me, that if I mean, it's obviously a gamble, right? Because he has not been healthy. He has not been healthy most of his career. And that's the big question mark in my mind, is like, how much are you willing to gamble on somebody who has not ever really been healthy? But if some of his minutes can overlap with DeAndre Ayton, that might be a very, very fun look for the Blazers. And I love WAP like he's my own son. And he's the best, and his story is wonderful, but he's also 27 years old. And I think that, like, you're right in terms of like we know what he's probably going to be. Although again, because he started playing basketball a little bit later, maybe that's not entirely true. That there's still maybe a couple new things that he could add to his game or like refine in his game. But I do think that he is a true backup center, and I don't know that Rob is exactly that in the way that WAP is, and he has an opportunity to play some really meaningful minutes in like big man lineups next to DeAndre Ayton, and that to me is like too attractive to let go of. But I know I love WAP, and I'm very happy I bought this jersey.
I'm shocked. But yeah, it's hard to make all these decisions. So I'm glad I don't get, and I'm glad it's not my career. It would be way too hard.
This is just a game for fun. And tomorrow I might be like, WAP is like my son and I'm never letting him go. I don't even care. Trade everybody, keep WAP. I probably won't be me tomorrow, but it could be.
Say, what if it's last game of the season? Well, what if he just drops 30 on the Kings? Like, is there? It's
He is what, to me, WAP is what they tried to turn Myers Leonard into when he was here. And they spent all those years trying to turn him into that. And WAP just is that. And
After one remix game.
Yes.
Like,
yes, exactly. But like, if we could turn back time and put WAP on like on that one of those older Blazers rosters, and we had that backup center, I'd be like, heck yeah, keep that guy. But that's not where we are today. We're not looking for a stretch five. We're looking for like a totally different thing, and a lot of the other pieces are like not well defined yet. But WAP feels like a really defined like backup center who's really, really awesome, really good at what he does, and can shoot the three. We don't need that right now, though. Put that on the old team. WAP was here when he was 24 instead of 27. Maybe we'd be talking about something.
But like I hear you, and I also think that the Myers Leonard thing finally panned out for like one game in a sweep in the conference finals. Well, one half. So
You know,
the
you know what his curse was?
which one?
Myers Leonard's curse.
Oh no, I was saying which one.
Oh, he he picked his own nickname. Another
Oh,
one who picked his own nickname and tried to make it a thing. We all knew, we just didn't want to say it. You're like, you're a nice guy, but
what was his
Forgot what
nickname?
was it?
he tried to make himself the Hammer.
Oh.
Oh,
Do you remember
oh,
that? Oh, it was horrible. It was dark times.
We all forgot it. Okay, but I will always be grateful for Myers Leonard for one thing, and that was that half against Golden State made it so that that summer I went to summer league and all these Golden State players came up to me going, "Oh my God, why are you guys letting Myers Leonard go?" And it was worth it for that to have all these Golden Warriors going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you let Myers Leonard go." So it was worth it for that. Okay, we got to wrap this discussion up. It has been great, but our Blazers are currently tipped off and are playing their final game of the season. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us again and going with us on these silly, meandering topics that we think maybe not a lot of other people are covering. We so appreciate you coming on and joining us. Will you tell people who want to follow the work that you do where they can find it?
yeah, no, no. Tara Rose, thank you again for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, if you want to find some of the podcast work, the archive right now, you can go to youtube.com/ at Bruce Poinsett. I always have to remember the at now. But yeah, and I'm also on the socials. So go to Twitter or X, excuse me.
It's Twitter
Twitter,
here.
formerly no. Okay, yeah,
Twitter
we'll just
here.
say Twitter, like decent people. So that's at Bruce Poinsett, or you can find me on Instagram at Poinsett Bruce. I don't know why who else took Bruce Poinsett before me, but it's a cold world out here. So yeah, thank you again. My Wi-Fi cut out in our G League segment, but I did just want to shout out because I went to one remix game. It's a wonderful experience. And I saw a player with possibly the best name I've seen in the wild on the Memphis Hustle, Adonis Arms. So I just wanted to put that on the podcast.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right. So my internet cut out before I could add that to the conversation. So we're just randomly throwing that in at the end. But yeah, Adonis Arms. Shout out to your parents for just being on it with that one.
That was amazing. I am so glad that you brought that up and made sure that we got that on record. That's amazing. Shout out to Adonis Arms. You can find me at TCB Biggs on Twitter. Rose, would you like to take us out of here?
Uh, yeah. You can find me at Roselle Harding on Twitter, on Instagram, and we are so thankful that you came and hung out with us today. Thank you again to Bruce, and go Blazers.